Welcome back to the Weekend Warrior Show Recap Podcast. I'm Ty from the Unemployed Architects. This week I'm sitting down with my good friend Jeff Easton. So he's a longtime friend and pretty much engineered, or what would you say, engineered or produced? So I don't know what the difference is.
I suppose you could say a little bit of both.
Right. I mean, I would say produced probably, just because I feel like, especially at this point, I mean, you kind of have a lot of input, and I feel like I try to take that, you know, with a lot of more than just a grain of salt, I suppose. But see, you've done a bunch of studio engineering and I'll say producing for. You did the whole Design to Shine album. And then you've done some kind of random stuff for me here and there. And then we just did the song Montauk. So I was going to start kind of like how we met. I mean, we went to high school at the same high school, right?
Yeah, I think so. That was like 80 years ago.
It does seem like a long time ago. But you played with Blair, actually, a lot in high school, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That was kind of like a one-year, one-off thing for the classic high school talent show kind of stuff. And then there was a show at, I think, the Rec Center in Pontiac.
Center. I remember that show pretty vividly for it being so long ago.
Mm-hmm.
That was like a legit production. And you guys had, I mean, who all was in that band? It was you, Blair, Mike Schiff.
Was it Josh?
Frizzell?
Josh. Sorry, what the last name started with a B. Brantley. Josh Brantley.
Yeah. That was he was a Dairy Queen crew. I remember he used to work with Blair, I think, over at the DQ.
Right.
And with Big D, which is kind of, you know, ties it all together a little bit.
Yeah, Dairy Queen in Pontiac, Illinois has pumped out a lot of world-class drummers.
Right. And then, yeah, so that was pretty much the whole band then. And you guys did a lot of covers, I remember. It was, I have this memory of you guys doing a lot of Jimmy Eat World. Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't know if we did a lot. I know we did whatever their main hit was. I can hear
America or something?
Yep. So yeah, I think there's some Jimmy Eat World in there, and All American Rejects, I think. I think we did Neil Young.
What Neil Young did you do? I wouldn't have appreciated that at all.
Keep on rocking in the free world, right?
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
nice.
And
classic.
Of course, Leonard Skinner. All of the as far as the classic rock, if you go to the T-shirt section at Kohl's, all those bands for the classic rock, and then we played some of the more modern, I guess, pop punk kind of stuff.
Yeah. I remember seeing you guys at the talent show at the high school, and you played that Bleed America song, and I just remember it pretty much killed. I mean, it sounded good. You guys had a lot of good musicians. But that's not primarily even the kind of music you were into at that point, right?
Depending on how you define into, it didn't really bother me, but right. In my free time, I was, mostly listening to, I'd probably say like Tool, Pantera, some
a little bit harder stuff,
older Metallica stuff, yeah. And
I actually remember your brother at the talent show one year doing what was the Tool song the one that everybody plays on bass, Schism, right?
Yeah, that was me. My brother Josh, he sang. Adam McCardle on bass. I think that was his name. Yeah. And Casey Frizzell on drums.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's even earlier.
Yeah, I have pretty vivid memories of that talent show because we
Did you guys win
we
it?
really practiced it, and I just remember being on stage and playing it and just having a moment on stage while we were playing, and Casey Frizell, he's such like a power drummer in a good way. He just hits the drums, and the way he hits the drums and kind of softly hits the cymbals, I just remember it sounding so powerful. And that song is such a drum heavy track. I mean, the drums are in most Tool songs, the drums are the primary kind of instrument that drive the song, right?
Yeah.
And I just remember in that talent show, just the song on guitar was pretty basic, right? I mean, there's nothing really complicated other than a few kind of time signature switches that might trip you up. But I just remember being on that stage, and that was just me listening to Casey Frizell play drums for 6 or 7 minutes, and I just have a very vivid memory of just, wow, this drummer is amazing, and this room just sounds really good right now. And I wish we had a video of that. I'd like to see that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You guys did Respect by Pantera, if I'm recalling correctly, too, at that. So at that point, I wouldn't even have known you very well. So I probably didn't even, because I knew Josh from wrestling from forever, since freshman year. And then, I heard he was going to be in the talent show. So that would have been probably a year before, because when you started playing with Blair, I think is when I probably started to, know you a little bit better. But, yeah, so you played Respect by Pantera too, is that correct?
Yeah, I forgot about that, but yeah, that's definitely true.
So I it's just an interesting thing because I wasn't really into that kind of music at all, but that performance definitely stood out in my brain for some reason. I mean, obviously I knew Josh, like I was saying, but I mean, in that talent show, I don't think there was any other like bands that, I don't know, that really kind of knew how to play more. I don't know, it just seemed like better than a high school talent show performance. Not that I had a super amazing reference or anything, because I mean, what year would you have been, like sophomore or junior?
Well, Blair was 1 year ahead of me. My brother was 2 years. My brother was 2 years ahead of me, so I would have been a junior or freshman is first. Man, this high school stuff is tripping me up. Yeah, so freshman. I would have been a sophomore. Mm-hmm.
So I would have been probably a freshman at that point. So I mean, I had like almost zero experience playing in a band, I think, at that point. But anyway, that one definitely sticks out, and it's like I didn't even really like that kind of music, but it still was like the performances were so good that I remember it pretty vividly, and I was just like an observer. And then that next year, when you guys did that, or I don't know if it was the next year, a couple years later, where you did that rec center show. I mean, that's like for that class of high school, I think is a pretty memorable show, because it was like, you had your two basic shows, your Fun Fest, your talent show, maybe you do like a Battle of the Bands in the summer or something, but I mean, there wasn't a lot of extra shows to play when you're in high school. But you guys set up this show at the rec center, and it was like a full production, and it just, you guys all just seemed like you knew what you were doing, and that was very impressive to me, I guess. And I know Schiff had a lot to do with that, because he did the Fun Fest when I was, I think, a sophomore, and he was like in charge of that production, and it was like crazy big and sounded good. It's like he knew, because I had done some before then, at just like the talent show, and no monitors, like they're using like the auditorium speakers. It was very, very like just whatever. And then Schiff kind of came in and at that Fun Fest and just took it over, and he like knew the right gear and what having two stages. And so I would imagine he probably had a little bit to do with kind of that part of it. And I remember there being like fog machines and lights, and I sounded good. Everybody played really well. I don't know. It was just a crazy memory. I remember people crowd surfing, I feel like.
Yeah, there was definitely, I mean, as far as the, production and logistics and sort of business side of all the Fun Fest stuff and talent show stuff, I don't remember being involved in that much, if at all. But I do remember, around that time in Pontiac, there were just so many musicians, and music was such a central part of Pontiac High School that, I remember that being a big thing every year, not just for musicians, but for a lot of the non-musicians as well.
Right. Well, and you were recording even back then, right? Like, I remember Blair showing me some stuff you had recorded for him, like, I think with him, not for him. But in high school, you were engineering way back then, right?
Yeah, that definitely. Yeah, I think I started recording stuff probably either like 8th grade or freshman year in high school, and yeah, I'd say having the ability to record was probably my primary kickstart in terms of getting more heavily into music, because it's kind of developed more of an appreciation for the craft. And it also helps when you're learning as well, to be able to record something and listen back and to try different layers and compositions, as opposed to just sitting on a stool in your bedroom, right, and just messing around, and then that's that. It's over.
That was what I was a pro at, just sitting around and playing guitar in the bedroom and at weird, high school parties, just having a guitar in my hand. I did some recording in high school, and I feel like I got my feet wet with it a little bit. But, when I listened to what I was doing in high school and I listened to what you were doing in high school, and it was just like complete two different animals. I mean, I feel like the professional soundingness of yours was, almost there then. So you had like a big like head start on getting into that stuff, because I feel like you were good before you even went to school for it.
Yeah, I definitely spent a lot of time. I lived out in the country, and this was before YouTube. I'm not sure if we had dial-up internet back then, but even if we had dial-up, it really didn't matter. But a lot of my junior high years and early high school years, before I got a car, I just lived out in the country, and friends didn't have cars, and you didn't have all the distractions and that you have today, with internet and TV. So
just cell phones in general. There's
cell
so
phones,
many,
and that's just what I did.
You can do on them.
Yeah, we had a desktop computer, and that's how I spent my time when I was bored.
When did you start playing guitar?
I want to say probably around 6th or 7th grade. I know my grandpa had bought my brother Josh a guitar, and we were both pretty heavy into Metallica, so I kind of watched him learn and play for about a year. And I actually started on bass, now that I remember. Since my brother played guitar, I had to do something different, so I was like, all right, I'm going to play bass. And I learned, played bass for about 6 months or maybe a year. I was like, nah, I'm going to play some guitar. And
then just Tony plays as well too, right? Like, you guys all are guitar players.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of musicians in my family, extended family. It's both sides of my parents' family. There's a lot of musically inclined people. So there just must be something about
Must be the water.
something in the water or the birth certificates.
I do have. I mean, not. I just I feel like for some reason you seem to progress through. I mean, Josh and Tony I've seen play guitar, and they're both probably better than I even am at guitar. But watching like you, I feel I don't know if it's like the music you grew up with, or I don't know. It just feels like you have like a different mind for that than most guitar players I know, and I don't know if that's like getting into the technicality of like recording, or if it's just the music you grew. I don't know. It just seems like you took it to a different level than those guys.
Well, I can't really give you a comparative analysis, so to speak, but
Right.
I guess I'll say, as far as the way I approach music, is not really anything different than how I tend to approach other things in my life. I've always kind of been a person that just likes to look at patterns and solve, not really problems, but try to find like hidden meanings in things, so to speak. Kind of the intuitive structures involved. So whether that's through, software development, which I do as my primary job, there's a lot of patterns and logical constraints and structures, algorithms, right? And a lot of that also applies to music. Music is there's a lot of sort of algorithms in music. When you look at scales and how you can go up and down scales, it's very randomly, or it's very rarely random, right? When you hear complicated passages played, whether they're complicated chord passages or whether they're types of phrasing on scales, like a diatonic phrase, there's always some kind of pattern or some kind of algorithm that allows them, or allows the person, to have a sort of conceptual grasp on what they are doing. So it's not really just, I'm going to memorize 200 notes one by one by one. I'm going to come up with two patterns or two types of phrases, and then I'm going to repeat those phrases in a pattern. So you kind of get this Lego, building block of patterns, kind of algorithms and shapes. And I think that's probably why I got so heavily into Tool or progressive rock, kind of some of the older Metallica stuff, is because there's a lot of very unintuitive patterns involved in that kind of music. But at the same time, once you discover the pattern and find the pattern and understand it, it starts becoming intuitive. So it kind of forces you to kind of step out of your own habits. And to me, that was exciting, being able to always be challenged as a listener. And then once you finally figure it out, you kind of feel like you've accomplished something as a listener and a musician.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like you have a different mind than a lot of guitar players I know. And I wasn't really saying that to, make you compare yourself to Josh and Tony, because they're like, I haven't even seen them play in a long time, and I'm sure they're definitely better than I am. But it just seems like, compared to any like most guitar players, I think part of it too is, I hang out with a lot of acoustic guitar players, but it just seemed like your mind has a different wiring in a lot of ways. But I remember it would have been you did a recording for Donnie and Ross, the California one, dude. Morning, something in the morning, I don't know. Morning Sunrise or something like that, I think.
Yep.
And I remember hearing that and being like, who did this? And because at that point in time, you know, I had wanted to get something down better than I could do, like on my home recording. So I remember hearing that and being like, I need to figure out who did this. And then they told me it was you, and I was like, man, he's really good. It sounds great. So then I reached out to you about maybe starting something in the recording. So that would have been, you know, we probably didn't really communicate too much. Even in, I mean, did we have a conversation in high school ever? I don't know if we did.
No, I don't remember us ever. I don't remember one time that I was in the same room with you and said something to you. So no.
Right.
Yeah.
I think I mean, obviously I saw you perform a good amount, and I remember, like I said, with Josh, I feel like I went out to your house at one point in time, and I may have seen you in passing, and you were playing guitar, and but anyway, so then I hit you up about the Morning Sunrise after I heard that song, and you were, so I think it was Oxide Lounge. You were like interning there or something?
Yeah. Yeah, I was just kind of, sort of job shadowing, so to speak, there, and interning a little bit.
And then we ended up and recorded the Art Vandelay EP with you, and that was that was kind of like we had just done one song up in a big studio in Chicago, and it was super expensive, and we didn't know what the hell we were doing. So I thought it might be better to work in maybe a local studio that wouldn't be quite as pricey and wouldn't have to drive 2 hours to, and maybe have a little bit more time. And then we had two more of my songs and 2 of Blair's songs. And do you remember that process at all? I mean, it's a little foggy to me. I remember being in the studio for sure, but
yeah, I remember. Definitely remember that more than high school, because this was post college. I think I'd already graduated college.
Yeah.
So this would have been around 2010, 2011, and yeah, I mean that was fun. It was that room sounds great in Oxide Lounge. It's a great sounding room, and I think he had a Neotech Elon console there. It just sounded so good, and I every now and then I'll get on YouTube and find those tracks. I'm not sure if you have them on Spotify. I'm sure you do, but
those ones I actually don't. Those ones are just YouTube only.
Yeah, but I really liked the sound of that room, and that would have probably been my first kind of, if you want to put in quotes and call it a project, where we had 4 or 5 tracks, and we knew we wanted to make a kind of completed project, yeah, I remember, we did Eat, Sleep, and Don't Die, Feeling Fine.
Yep.
Aftermath.
Mm-hmm.
And
completely closed.
Completely closed. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yep. And we did some interesting stuff in there. I do remember, I listening back on those, I feel like, I mean, everything you did was great. I just didn't know what my goal was. Like, I didn't have like ideal sounds for things. So there was no way for me to really describe, what I was searching for, and, I mean, they sound cool. I definitely remember Feel Fine turning out really cool. And if we wouldn't have done that giant intro and Eat, Sleep, and Don't Die, I feel like that one would have been even a little cooler. But the like when you get into the meat of that song, I feel like it sounds really, really good. And I don't know, I feel like just Blair was killing it. And I remember watching him do like some doubles for some songs and just being so amazed that he would play it so perfectly, the first way and the second way. Because I don't know, I just I hadn't been asked to do that a whole lot, I think, as a guitar player. So it was interesting to see. And his vocal performance in Eat, Sleep, and Don't Die, I just feel like he killed it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, looking back on that one, if you're wanting to, look at, and I'm just saying you more generally, not you, but if someone were to, look at that EP from a critic standpoint in terms of like, the sort of mix quality and compositional quality, that kind of stuff, and if you kind of like sit there and analyze it and try to judge it, I think that there's definitely some things in there I would have done differently, but at the same time, I feel like when I listen to that, there's a certain kind of raw spirit about that EP that I really like.
I definitely
we didn't spend a lot of time on the details, and kind of going back to what I said about that room in Oxide Lounge. I know we mic'd out the amps. We did the vocals in there.
Mm-hmm.
I know I ended up sampling some of the drum tracks where I think some of the kick and snare samples were a bit heavy, but there's just something about that recording where it was there's just a sort of spirit about it, and there's like a mid range, and that mid range comes from that console in that room, and I just really like listening to those tracks because so much of everything now is so pristine, and the high end on so much digital gear now it's so just kind of sugary and perfect, right? Whereas part of that EP, we were in a kind of more acoustically built room on a real console, and I can definitely hear that sort of natural, I don't want to say warmth because that's overused, but there's something about the phasing that comes from a good room, the phasing that comes from good consoles and using microphones.
And I would say
that was really captured on that EP.
I would say that that's very much Tony's style too. I mean, he likes that raw kind of sound, and I don't know. I got mixed feelings about it. Obviously, I think it's more me than anybody else, and I just that like I feel like I could have sang it better, and I could have played guitar better, and the only other thing that bugs me about that is I could have used a little bit more low end on the kick drum on a lot of those tracks, but I wouldn't have known what I was even trying to say, So that's the stuff I think about when I listen to that. But I do really enjoy that Feel Fine song, even though I slightly think my vocals aren't great in it. But the overall just feel and vibe and sound, and I for some reason, when I listened back to that, I really remembered Dee's drum parts being like very surprisingly cool to me. Like it was almost like I hadn't listened to him very closely before, and then I got it like when it was down and recorded, I could listen to it more than being in the moment and just trying to play with him instead of just passively listening. And I remember it sounded very, very cool. And then I think Blair's vocals just sound really, really nice. I remember all the doubles in Eat, Sleep, and Don't Die had this, like, I know that this probably isn't an amazing comparison, but for me, it reminds me of, like, the Michael Jackson vocals, like the way his he does his doubles and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It just had, like, this really cool, like, effect of the hard doubles. But
yeah,
anyway.
there's I mean, you put on a put on a pair of headphones, and this is why, in many cases, why I tend to, when I listen to music, I'm sometimes drawn more to like great mixes than I am the actual songs. Like if I'm working, I'll put on go to Spotify, put on top 40, and just listen to a lot of the kind of pop R&B stuff. And you mentioned like the doubling with the Michael Jackson thing. Is there are so many layers to great mixes that even if you're not into the song, just hearing the quality, the sort of clever way of doing doubling, and just kind of hearing how they have panned and
you can like appreciate. You can appreciate it. Yeah, mm-hmm. I find myself doing that a lot.
It's kind of like with movies,
deep. Huh?
To me, it's like kind of like movies. Sometimes you'll watch like a superhero movie, and like, yeah, this story kind of sucks, but wow, this cinematography is incredible, or these special effects are incredible, or this movie just looks so good. I kind of a lot of times approach my listening habits the same way, where put on a pop song or something, and you're like, well, the song, I don't really feel the song, but wow, this is an incredible production.
And I think it just even with songs that you are into, if it's mixed well, I mean, I think that plays a big part of it. I feel like sometimes it enhances the music if it has like a really solid mix in a way that, I don't know, maybe I wouldn't have appreciated 10 years ago, because I wouldn't have had know what I'm really listening for and stuff. But when I hear, go ahead.
I was gonna say, it's just kind of interesting. When I look at some of the albums that are my all-time favorite albums, I've always found that the mixes are some of my all-time favorite mixes as well. So going back to the kind of the pop thing or the country thing, where it's like I don't care for this song, but it's like clearly you can listen to that song and say, well, for what it is and what it's trying to accomplish, it's a great song. It's just not my it just doesn't resonate with me, right?
It's not your absolute favorite of all time.
Yeah, I mean, It's like food. It's like food, I don't like this particular kind of food, but I know it's made really well. You know what I mean? Just because it makes me cringe so hard. And maybe that's not the right way of putting it, but the point being is, I've always kind of found that the greatest mixes are always juxtaposed with the greatest songs, because a great mix to me requires a great song to begin with. And the mix isn't anything except a perspective on the song. So you can't change the song through a mix. And looking at some of my favorite songs, favorite albums, I think when you have a great song and you have a great performance, great sounding instruments and a great sounding room, I mean, the mix is just there to help guide the listener through it. It's not really if you're listening to the mix instead of the song, I guess that could mean two things. One, you're just kind of a audio nerd, or two, the mix is wrong, so to speak.
Well,
or the song is, or there's issues with the song, right? But I just wanted to point out, just to me, that I don't separate the mix from the song. Even if I don't like the song, I can still say it's an objectively good song, and that's why the mix is so good as well, because without a good composition,
doesn't matter.
The mix just doesn't matter.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. That's one of the funny things about hanging out with you. I know what your preferred music is, but like when we were recording Design to Shine, there would be times where I'd come in and you'd be listening to some pop song, and I'd be like, well, this seems different. I wouldn't really. I think there was like a Lady Gaga song one time that you were really liking the mix on, and you it just it was either that or watching. I'd come in and you'd be watching like a drum, not tutorial. What would you call that? Where it's just the drummer playing along with the song that he recorded,
cover or something. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was one or the other. It was like weird, very poppy kind of stuff, or like either really dark, like heavy stuff, or the drum stuff. So it was funny.
I liked playing stuff in between breaks because it just kind of got me out of the tunnel vision. I think it's so easy when you're writing or recording or mixing or mastering. You just get this tunnel vision, and I get the same thing. If I'm doing software development and programming, where you're trying to sort of solve a problem or create something, and you spend 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours on it, and you find yourself, all right, you're sort of fighting it. You're fighting the mix or the composition, or something's not really gelling right, or whatever it is. And sometimes you just got to take a nap, so to speak. Listen to something else. Just get out of that tunnel vision, and usually we can kind of come back with more of a kind of beginner's mind, so to speak. An empty mind, and
it cleanses the palate, right?
Comes with what?
It cleanses the palate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
but yeah, that's why I do that. I definitely like if you have a good set of speakers. Yeah, and I know people have phones or earbuds and they listen on them, and not everyone,
really dives
has $500 to drop on some decent, flat reference speakers or whatever it is. It's but man, if you just get the opportunity to sit down on a nice pair of like reference monitors and just listen to some of these songs that are produced in these, New York, Hollywood studios, where they have like actual rooms, and they're recording them on, like an SSL console or something, or like a Neve. It's just, to me, it's an amazing thing to experience if you get to really truly hear high quality audio, because so much of it is just lost in the way we consume music, which is fine. I mean, it's, but there's something to be said about high quality gear that I think the vast majority of people have never really truly heard.
Yeah, I think about that a lot. I mean, being anybody who records, I think you run into that. Hey, Jeff, I got to run to the bathroom really quick. I'll cut this part out. Hold on one second.
Not leave it in.
In the back.
No.
Are you still there?
Yep.
Didn't lose you. All right.
Nope.
So yeah, what I was saying was, I think anybody who does any sort of recording, eventually you kind of run into that kind of thinking as like, people oftentimes listen to music on just their cell phone speakers, and that's like, like you said, it's fine. It's a way to consume music, and it, you can definitely, I think, find some joy in that, and people do that. But I do, I have a whole different experience with listening to music than just cell phone speakers. I mean, I'm always on the hunt for, well, like really nice sounding headphones or speakers, or, trying to mix things different in my car to get the, right balance. And I just think that that's a whole different experience that I don't know that a lot of people do or like take the time to do. Not that they have to or anything, but it's interesting to think about that. Like the way I like will put on my headphones, like some nice headphones that are like over the ear, really nice earbuds that sound really good, and I'll just listen to music like while I do stuff, or like working out's a big part of that. When I'm working out, I'm always trying to, because that awesome audio or that awesome mix that I hear in these nice headphones, will up the intensity of my workout by like 20% for like, it's like a steroid in some ways, so a performance enhancing drug in a lot of ways. And it's interesting to think that not a lot of people probably do that.
Yeah, I think another aspect of it is, there's the audiophile aspect of it where, it's the audio guy, like, wow, these speakers sound amazing, you know what I mean? And wow, this microphone sounds awesome, or whatever you want. It's all about the gear or the general texture of the mechanical pieces going on, right? And of course that's valid. But to me, it's also like the difference between watching a baseball game on TV and being at the baseball game itself.
I think that's a really good comparison.
Yeah, when you are listening to great mixes recorded in great rooms with great gear, and you're listening to that on just great speakers, there's just a transparency about it, that you are almost in the room with them. And I don't say that in any kind of exaggerated way. It's the purpose of high-end gear is to capture all of the dynamics and to capture the room and to capture the performance as truly as possible. And then, of course, the speakers, will try to output that, in the most kind of transparent way as possible. So, when you listen to great artists who've written great music, who have just had great performances,
that's
have been
one
captured
thing
in studios, is when you listen to that on great speakers, you are getting as close as possible to being in that room, with those artists.
And not just in the room, it's like in the room on if every musician was having like their best day of performance.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
So that, brings it to such an even crazier level, it's like the song expressed in like a perfect way, or as perfect as possible. And I don't think, and I think that's kind of similar to like live sound and live music. I mean, something people don't really factor in a lot of the time when they go and see a band is how how crazy that part of it can get. Mm-hmm. Like live audio is a whole different ballgame, and you're trying to do that same expression like in real time, which you get a lot more, I think, leeway with in the live than you do maybe in the studio, and that's because you have the visual part as well as the audio part. So when you're in the studio, it's like you have to try to bring up the audio part to a whole nother level that would match the live experience almost, of hearing a song, but without the visual part of it. So, it's a interesting thing.
Yeah, there's some bands I can name right now, like Iron Maiden, for example. I listen to a lot of Iron Maiden, but Iron Maiden is just like a band that was like sent by God to play live shows. You know what I mean? Like, as much as I love their records, and I listen to a lot of Iron Maiden, a lot of, recorded Iron Maiden from, all the way back to like the mid 80s up to, some of their stuff they come out with recently. It's all cool, but I still always prefer, I put on their live records. They're like the greatest band I've ever seen live. And that was at Tinley Park. And I remember Tinley Park, even that concert, I was like, wow, this is the worst sounding venue I have ever been
Can
in.
I
It
interject
sounds-
here? Can I interject one
Yeah.
second here? I've also had that same exact thought at Tenley Park. I've only
Yeah.
been to one show there. I saw John Mayer there once, and it just was bad. I don't know. It wasn't bad on the performance side of things, but it wasn't like a lot of live shows I've been to. I don't know what it is about that place. It's not set up right.
It might be where we were sitting. If you're down on the ground floor, if you kind of make like an equilateral triangle from there's the two line arrays, the speakers that kind of hang, on the left and right of the stage. You make a equilateral triangle, between the base of the stage to where you're standing. That's kind of the quote ideal position to be in terms of you're getting the right balance of the direct speaker, the sound direct from the speaker, and then the acoustics in the room, combining and phasing in with that direct speaker sound. I was kind of up and far away, so I don't know where you were standing, but I remember it just being like almost unintelligible. I'm not sure if that was because I was drinking a lot, but
I can say for certain I was not drinking a lot.
yeah, okay.
And
So
we were on the, we weren't on the lawn. We were, a little bit in front of the lawn and actual seats.
Yeah.
But
So we might have just been in some real crappy spots. We were the cattle pushing profits into the venue, and sounds
Right.
bad, but we were there. But yeah, you're talking about how sometimes live artists can't capture the recordings in a live way. Well, the opposite can be true for some bands. Some bands are just, their power comes from the loud live environment. And, I think Iron Maiden is definitely a prime example of that, So like I said about Tinley Park, that was the worst sounding concert I have ever been to. But at the same time, I saw it was Iron Maiden in 2010, and Dream Theater opened up for him at Tinley Park. It was by far easily probably the worst sounding concert I've ever been to. But it was like light years. Like literally like light years, the best concert I have ever seen. And because I knew all the songs, and even it sounded so bad. Iron Maiden has such a simple formula. And that formula, just when it's played live and you have the energy of their frontman, Bruce Dickinson, it's like such a powerful formula that it's just, when you watch it live on DVD or you're there in person, it's almost like a mystical, transcendental experience. Like you feel like you are in like a different wavelength, like for the full concert. And you can sometimes get that on recordings. You can kind of, get taken to kind of a different wavelength where you almost feel like you're in a, almost like a different reality, so to speak, right? But it's the live shows for some bands where you really feel like it's almost like a dreamlike alternate reality that I found for some bands that you just cannot capture on a recording, because
that's what they always say about the Grateful Dead.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're notorious. At least a lot of I haven't ever really dived into the Grateful Dead or anything, but the people I know that have usually say, they don't do the studio stuff very well, but the live stuff is kind of what it's all about. And I think it, not only does their music take you to another kind of a form of reality or another plane of reality, but obviously the big hippie part of it too. You're going there anyway, so it's supposed to be very symbiotic. Taking some illicit substances and listening to Grateful Dead, but I feel like that's why I got so into music anyway. I went to some live shows as a child essentially, and I feel like I've just been taken to a different place, and I always, it's like a drug addict in some ways. I'm always trying to hit that same, I'm chasing the dragon, trying to get there with the recording and I mean the same goes for performing live shows. After watching so many people do it so well and be taken there, I wanted to get there myself, and I feel like I have in a lot of shows, but it's a constant search for trying to get back there. And same for in the studio. I mean, I feel like that's definitely what I'm trying to do, but it's a struggle.
I don't even think that's really, I mean, if you're talking specifically about music, of course it's a music thing. But I think that's, most art and most entertainment is, I want to say it's an escape, because sometimes it's not an escape. Sometimes, a film or art or a song can actually provide, clarity to your life in a more real way than kind of you've been thinking about your life, And I think, it's, some people kind of get into that transcendental state watching a good movie. Some people, it's a really good video game. There are video games that just have amazing stories and amazing atmospheres. And then, of course, you have music and live sound. And, I think that in many cases is why people, I don't want to say why people listen to music or listen, because there's a lot of different, there's a variety of reasons, but I would say that sort of feeling of being in a bit of a different reality has always been why I really enjoyed working with music, listening to music and getting into mixing, because there's so many distractions in life now. There's always been distractions in life, but life is full of problems, and I don't mean problems in a negative way, just problems you need to solve, whether they're positive problems or negative problems, and you can get so caught up in the kind of whirlwind of living life that sitting down and listening to a great record for an hour or watching a great movie for an hour and a half can take you out of that that kind of block of cement, kind of
it's kind of funny. It's like what you're saying when you're mixing and you need a break, you need an ear break to cleanse the palate and kind of so you can refocus. I think what you're describing is like that, using mixing like a metaphor for life and art being the ear break.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, because when you're working on music, I think a lot of people who don't write music or work on films or produce entertainment, they might think like, wow, wouldn't that be such a great way to live life? It must be so fun. But that, creating art, creating music, film, all that stuff, it's, it has the same baseline level of problems. There's a lot of problems you need to solve. And unless you're just so incredibly gifted that it just flows right through you and you don't have to think about it. I mean, it's work. There's a lot of work involved in it, So when you're actually, in the studio, or you're at home and you're writing music and you're mixing, it's a lot of work. And sometimes you need to take a break from that. Just like, some people need to take a break from, if they, work in a corporate office or something, they need to take a break to go listen to music. If you're working around music 6-8 hours a day,
watch a Marvel movie, right?
Yeah. It's I don't think any form of art or any form of work you can just keep doing. I think any aspect of life you need variety. There's kind of impermanence. Eventually, the more you do something, the more you're going to start kind of, I don't want to say hate it, but you're going to want to do something else, right? And
You're going to treat it like a job to the point where it becomes as mundane as any other job.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, music is always relative to the person in terms of, what is my motivation for either A, listening to music, or B, creating music. And the motivation is always kind of relative to your day-to-day problems. Like I said, both positive problems and negative problems. And, music is, just kind of a tool.
Well, I think I sometimes get confused when you say a positive problem, but then now I'm thinking of it like music would be a positive problem. Like, I'm trying to figure out like a mix on something and like what's wrong with this mix. Like that's a problem I'm trying to solve, but it's a positive problem. That just clicked for me. So I wanted to clarify.
Yeah,
I guess.
Or just something like, I have to eat this evening, so I need to figure out, what I'm going to eat. It's like a positive problem, but it's a problem you need to solve. And, every day is a collection of problems that you're always trying to solve as a human being. And you can get so caught up in the routine of problems that, certain pieces of art can present you a temporary escape from having to solve those problems and, let you look at life in a bit of a different way.
Yeah.
But
so
the big rabbit hole we went down. I'm not sure where we were going with this, but
I like it though. You had interesting there. So when you moved to Eclipse to start doing some recording, and we came in with 16 tracks of music to try and record. I just wondered what you were thinking when we were you thinking that was a good idea or a bad idea, or like, oh, we won't do all these, so it's not a big deal. I mean, did you have any thoughts like that?
Not really. No, I don't remember looking at the number and judging or kind of predicting it in any way. I wasn't sure, how much. Anybody can put out a record with 15 or 16 tracks if they just, we're going to do 2 or 3 takes and, it is what it is. Throw up a quick mix. It's just kind of, to what degree were you going to, were we going to sculpt, all those tracks. And I think we ended up spending a lot of time kind of chiseling away at them, all the
it
kind
definitely
of
wasn't
details.
my mentality to just try to knock them out quickly, which may or may not have been a mistake. I don't know, but it is what it is.
Yeah, it's hard because so much of, at least for me, when the kind of, I don't know if muse is the right word, but it's fleeting. When I'm in the mood to write something, it's a very fleeting thing. So, it's hard to keep like a 3 or a 4 or a 5 year muse, so to speak, and capture a sort of focused expression.
Yeah, we ended up doing 3 years on Design to Shine, but it was spread out. It wasn't like consecutive, like weeks or anything. It wasn't like we were, working every day, day in, day out for 3 years. It was like, twice or 3 times a month, maybe 4 to 8 hour sessions, depending on what we were doing. And, then the mixing process came along. I think we probably got most things tracked in about a year, but the actual, like, mixing and adding in auxiliary instruments and I don't know. I just had, like, more, like I just wanted the album to kind of transcend what I wanted people to come away with like, oh, there's no doubt that this is good. Like, which I realize is kind of a silly, because I thought the songs themselves were fine, and it's not like we were writing the songs while we were in the studio. These were songs we had been playing for, a long time. So we're just trying to get those down on wax essentially, so that way we could, have them be expressed in any sort of way, really. But I wanted to, take those songs, to a different level of audio, like different level of the ability to experience them, I guess. And because besides Art Vandelay, that 5-track EP, we didn't have anything, and we'd been playing for years at that point. We wanted to get a lot of stuff done. And I thought, if I get this amazing sounding album with the songs that I think are good, a lot of doors would start opening for us. I guess that was the vision, but I don't know if that really, in some ways it probably helps to have good quality songs out there. Obviously, I was hoping it would open maybe a few more doors than it has, but no matter what, I would probably say that, so...
Yeah, there's so much saturation, not just in music nowadays, and even back then, because that would have been 2013 or something like that.
Yeah, the album released in 15, so 2012 to 15 probably.
Yeah, there's so much saturation in entertainment now that it's just pushing out a song. Unless you just get really lucky, it's you need to have a marketing push behind it, and I don't even really mean marketing push in the kind of normative way, just more in terms of you look at say the 90s or the early 2000s. The marketing push was radio and MTV, and then there were, the live tours, right? Your live shows. And now, the radio is pretty much out of the picture. TV is completely out of the picture. So as a musician, now you're competing with platforms where users have an entire buffet of choice, and it's not just music. There's stream. It's how do you compete with Game of Thrones? You have Breaking Bad, Netflix, and then all these incredible video games coming out. And if you're a musician, if you want to get a lot of people listening to your music, you really need to have something so unique to say that that they're gonna say, all right, I'm gonna choose you over my 10,000 other options.
Yeah, there's literally thousands of songs being released every day, so how do you stand out with your 1 to 1,000?
Yeah.
It's tough. I don't have any answer, obviously, or else maybe I'd be sitting somewhere else. But so then it comes around to I think with the idea of Design to Shine was make it undeniable that we were maybe artists, and we were make an album of very listenable music that could compete with stuff on the radio, but that doesn't really manifest like that. Like, people aren't comparing it because people don't hear it. If you've heard my album, you're definitely, or the Unemployed Architects album, you are in the minority for sure. Most people will never hear that album. So then it comes around to just creating art for art, I think, after that album. Because it's
and you guys didn't really tour, right? And I was saying about the TV's out of the picture, radio's out of the picture. The primary means at least for rock bands, from what I understand, of getting exposure and getting a fan base is through touring. Opening up for other bands that already have fan bases, and
well, it did. I think it did mean
get you that in. And you guys didn't really have a really formal like tour where you traveled for 3 or 4 months. Behind some other band and.
I wouldn't say it was a formal tour, but we were playing every weekend. I mean, we played at hundreds of shows a year, So, I mean, is that touring in the traditional sense? I'd say no. But the idea is that, you open these doors to maybe get some... I don't know how you do a tour like that. I think you have to, doors have to be open for you, kind of, in some ways.
Well, yeah, I mean, It's probably tough living in Bloomington because there was the Castle Theater, right? And sometimes bands would come through, and you guys played a lot of. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but you played a lot of bars and that kind of stuff. Which the people at the bar, their primary motive isn't,
music.
To go to the bar and listen to and discover music, and at least from my experience, right? Whereas if you're on a tour with some band that already has a following, 4 or 5 days a night, you are in a music venue and you have 500 or 1,000 people there who came there primarily as dedicated music fans to listen to music and discover music. And that's, to me, that's probably going to be
it's going to have a better outcome.
Yeah, and that's always kind of been the primary way for rock bands to get followings, I mean, like Pantera didn't just start on the radio, Whereas, like someone like, Tina Turner or something, they probably put out a record and then, the record label was like, hey, radio stations, check this out. We'll give you some money. Play it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas rock bands have always been, boots on the ground. Scraping by, eating bologna sandwiches until the radio stations had no choice but to, play them, or whatever. But it's interesting to think about though, because it's even metal now and rock now. It's there's just not, and it might just be me getting older as well, but there's just not really a lot of on the ground music scenes anymore. And I don't know if that's just because everyone has internet, everyone has TVs, the streaming services.
I think it has something to do with everybody has their own like curated artist library of, very specific music that's very specific to them individually, because there are so many options that it's just like it's so everything's spread so thin. There's not like 10 songs on the radio that they just play over and over and over again that everybody knows.
Yep.
It's like you have your art. Like I like this band Saint Seneca. I'm 90% sure you probably never heard of them before, right?
Nope.
Right. So I mean, there's a lot of bands like that are one of like my favorite bands that nobody's even ever heard of before. And I think that has kind of happened across the board in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I mean it's a catch-22, there's so many ways to get your music out now, but because of that, there's so many less ways to make a living off of it.
Yeah.
And I mean I'm sure in a couple of years when all of the knock on wood, coronavirus stuff, goes away, that maybe there'll be a bit of a resurgence. But yeah, I mean, I even personally, I don't much like going to shows anymore unless it's just like a band that I have no choice but to see, and
right.
I think there's definitely a youth element to live music. And yeah, the youth now just has so many choices, so many options. It's pretty incredible. I can't imagine. Cause I remember growing up and getting a CD, and a CD costs like $10 or $15, and I probably would have been like 10 or 11 or something, and it's like, wow, I got $20. I'm gonna buy a CD, and like I would just listen to that CD for like months, because that was like this is my CD. You know what I mean? It's not like I can't just like get on the internet and just like put on a random playlist or
and hear anything you want at any time that you choose
or like
to listen to it.
Funny cat videos on YouTube for 5 hours. It's today there's just so much choice, and I think if you're wanting to make a living off doing art, if you're wanting to make a living off doing music, you better have something very very unique and real to say with your music. Otherwise you're just going to get lost in the kind of the desert of Spotify and YouTube.
But then I think that comes back to trying to make art in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Not that that's not my only motive, I would say, but I mean it's definitely a big part of it, is like there's a pretty high chance that I'm never going to be as successful as I would like to be with the music part of my life, but I mean, at least I had something to say and I said it, if that makes sense. But yeah, I don't know. I enjoy the process a lot, and it can be frustrating and be problematic in a lot of ways, like you were saying earlier, and it can become a little bit of a job. But if I didn't enjoy the process of doing it, then there would be no point,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you might as well just get a job.
Yeah.
Making, X amount of dollars if you're going to be at the same kind of baseline level of happiness, so to speak.
Yeah. So before you go today, I definitely wanted to get into Montauk a little bit, since that's kind of the main reason to bring this about. Though I have, wanted to talk to you on here for a little while. I just wanted to have a good excuse to do it, I think.
Yeah.
But the way that started, I kind of talked about this on one I did recently, podcast I did recently, but I had like 12 or 15 new songs, and I came and you just had me play them into a microphone, and I was so just surprised at the one you picked to record. It was like a song I kind of thought, I liked it, but it was like kind of like, this would be a little bit of a B-side maybe, I don't know. But what was there something specific that grabbed your attention on that song?
I remember it was that one and that Digital Soul one. I felt like with Montauk that had the most space to fill in with melody and ambience, so to speak. And I think just at that time in my life, that was the kind of music I was listening to, was kind of, ambient power melody kind of stuff. And I think that one just, Montauk at a gut level, yeah.
We definitely filled the space. I don't think there's any space left in that song.
No, I put a space analyzer plugin on it. It said 0.
0 left.
Yes.
We got a little nuts with that, and I said this before, but with this song, because of the haphazard way I kind of got around to getting together with you, which is completely on me. Took about as long as the 14-track album we really took about 3 years to get done, which is pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, I think the difference between now and then is we both work full time now, and that makes things more difficult.
And I mean, it's not like there's a deadline. I mean, I was releasing some other stuff that I think you helped me out with some of it. Eric from Eclipse helped me out with some of it on the mixing and mastering side, kind of simultaneously as us recording this song. But yeah, I don't know. Just and just getting everybody in there, you know. I wanted to get Kev in there, Dave in there, and Blair in there, and you know, scheduling and just I don't know. It's not a song I played live a lot either, so nobody really knew how to play it necessarily going into it.
Right.
So it was like I had to like teach everybody the song that we had never played before, and then they'd have to come up with their parts to it, and then get them to record with you. And then, you know, we sat on so many mixes just waiting on other people, I feel like, for so long that, you know, that's really kind of what, you know, besides my lackadaisicalness, I mean, as far as making it happen. But but for as much as a B-side song as I thought that was, like, I don't know, I really ended up and liked it, like, a lot. Like, the mix you did sounds like really, really good. There's so many elements to it. It's a very, like, interesting experience to listen to in good speakers and headphones, for me anyway.
Yeah, and it was different for me too. I mean, that's I think definitely the first time I've tried producing something of that kind of style.
Right.
So it didn't feel as like a formula, you know. So a lot of times I don't write much anymore, really, music wise, and a lot of it is because, you know, you get out of work and you come home and you're just like, it's that, you know, choices, you know, I'm gonna just play some video games. I don't want to solve music problems right now, but I tend to kind of get trapped in these formulas if I feel rushed, you know, and that's how I feel. If it's like a Saturday, I'm like, well, I have one day today to write music for this whole week, so I need to hurry up and write something, you know. So you kind of start coming up, you know, oh, what can I put out here real quick? Oh, what are these formulas, you know? And I'm like, oh, yeah, here's the formula. Montauk, that was nothing that I had ever really worked in before. So I had no formula in my head, like, this is what you have to do, and then this is what you have to do. So, you know, I found that process a lot more interesting, and that's probably why, you know, I stuck with it. You know,
and cheers to you for doing that, because I didn't make it easy to stick with, I don't think. But a lot of the stuff you came up with in it, like as far as a lot of like the synth and strings and drums and stuff, is stuff I would have even, you know, it would have, if it was up to me to just do that song by myself, it would have came up a completely different thing, a different animal completely. So having you kind of there to make the song, I don't know. Yeah, I just feel like you brought it to the next level, maybe next 10 levels of what it would have been probably if I just did it myself.
11.
And you know, I'm really happy with the way it turned out. I think it's a pretty cool tune.
Good. Yeah, a lot of
and it doesn't sound like, what's that?
A lot of hours put into it, so
yeah,
it's good to feel good about it.
And it, you know, it doesn't sound like anything else I've ever done, you know, and I think it sounds completely different. I wouldn't say it's completely original or anything, but it's a collaboration of a lot of different things. And that gives it like a pretty unique sound in some ways. It's like, you know, kind of mixing and matching different genres and stuff to make it kind of its own things. But yeah, I don't know. I think it turned out really well, and I you know, it's funny. We talked about doing that video for a long time, and then eventually you're like, I'll just do the picture for it. And you did that picture for the single release. And never have I ever had so many people be like, hey, I really like that new UA. Well, the logo you did, the UA.
The UA logo. Thing, yeah.
And you were excited about it when you did it, and I was like, yeah, that's cool, whatever. And then I posted it and stuff, and I got 4 or 5 people, which doesn't ever happen when I release songs point out that specific. I mean, the whole picture is very, very cool and very detailed and, a really nice graphic. And it goes along with the song in a lot of ways. But the UA part of it, for some reason, really stuck out to people, I guess.
That's your first logo.
Yeah.
So you're talking about the U with the A overlaying the U.
Yeah.
So or the U overlays the U, so it looks like an A.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So good eyes on that. I would have never even thought about that.
Yeah, I don't know why. It just popped in my head. One time I was like, hey, a UA. And not much thinking to it. Sometimes it was like that little cut, in the song where we put on the low pass. Yeah, we put on the low pass filter, and then there's the
bell
reverse thing, and sometimes a lot of the cool stuff just happens. It's like, you can try to think all day and mess around with stuff all day, but sometimes I think the coolest ideas are just ideas that just happen.
Yeah. Well, and that I like that in that song too, in the same way you were talking about, kind of earlier with the mixes and taking a break. That filter you put on that one spot, it weirdly gives your ear a break from just the same frequencies that you've been hearing the whole song.
Yeah.
And then it resets it with that bell hit and the reverse cymbal. It was just, and you just did that last minute, in the last day we recorded it, and it really changed the song in a good way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I kind of gave it a bit more some dynamics and.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's you play the same pattern over and over, your brain figures it out, and your brain's like, I need another pattern to solve, another problem to solve. So it's kind of interesting with music is even in songs, songs need to kind of present the brain problems, and if you figure out a song too quickly, you're gonna get bored with the song. Like, yeah, I got the song figured out.
Right, like tension resolution.
Yeah.
Resolution. You can't just keep doing that same pattern over and over and over again, or else it just gets too repetitive. But anyway, so I think in a lot of ways, I wanted to say thank you for spending the time on that song and coming up with all the awesome extra stuff in it. And I don't know, I appreciate what you do and what you have always been doing for me and with me, and I don't probably don't say it enough, but thank you. I mean, you spent a lot of time on that song, and I don't think a lot of people maybe would have stuck with it, and in a lot of ways I think you're like the unofficial 5th member of the Unemployed Architects, because you've been right there with us for so long.
I appreciate it. Yeah. You guys do a lot of the heavy lifting with the writing, and all that stuff. And, I for the most part, I like sitting down and just mixing, and you need tracks to mix. So
right.
Thank you for the tracks.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Well, I think we could talk for another probably hour and a half if we had to. So we should maybe do that at some point. But, for now, let's maybe give everybody who stuck around this far an ear break. Let them cleanse their palate. And
I think our next podcast episode is gonna be about aliens.
Yeah,
and
we'll get into
government.
the conspiracy theories next time. So
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm gonna cut it off here. I appreciate you. I appreciate all you do, and I'm sure we'll do this again at some point. And as always, I want to thank everybody who takes the time to listen. And we will talk to you next time.
Hey, I just want to tell everyone to buy my book.
All right. What's your book?
I don't have a book.
All right. Well, we'll promote that after you write it on this podcast.
Yeah, I need some funding first, so you can go to my Patreon, find me on Twitter, Facebook, buy my book, and send me money.
You forgot TikTok. You're a big
TikTok,
guy,
yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. Well, anyway, thanks, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks, man. See ya.